Recording. Go ahead, Terry.
Okay, call the meeting to order. Peter, do you have somebody to introduce?
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Happy to introduce our town CEO, Chris Prosser, and I'd sing his accolades, but he's much better at it, so I'll let him do that.
I'm not going to sing it all tonight. That would start the meeting off on a wrong note. So thanks, Peter. Thanks, everybody, for welcoming me. It's been a while. I've been here for 14 months now, and it's been a strange 14 months. Let's put it that way. So thanks for having me. I'll be listening in and just hearing what you guys are talking about and seeing what we can take away from it. So thanks very much for having me.
Welcome, Chris.
Welcome aboard, Chris.
Next item, adoption of the agenda. Anybody have anything to add to the agenda? Hearing none. Motion to accept the adopt the agenda.
I'll accept.
Who is that?
I'll be Cam.
Cam. Thank you. Second.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Tom. Anyone opposed? Hearing none. That is carried. Adoption of the minutes. Any errors or omissions?
I didn't notice, Terry. I think we talked about having Greg do a kind of an overview or a presentation in relation to the crime picture in High River. Maybe that doesn't need to be in the minutes, but I know we talked about that.
Okay. What would you like it to be? Where would you like that?
Sometime in the new year, which is now, I guess, is Staff Sergeant Weed would provide the committee an overview of the crime picture in High River and kind of the crime management strategy for the High River detachment.
Yeah,
okay.
I can speak to, I've got a report here for last fiscal year, so from January to December 2020. It'll break down what we were doing for calls, what we did most in calls. When it comes to the strategy, that's going to be developed here over the next couple months as we get consultation from the committee, from bylaw services, from the detachment itself. We have the survey going out that we're going to get information brought back to us from. From those points, we'll work together and build a plan for dealing with what we deem are going to be the issues moving forward for the year.
Okay. And maybe, Angie, on the end of the RCMP one, the last meeting, you could just, for the record, because it was mentioned in there, that Barry requested an update, Barry, or?
Yeah, just kind of what Greg's feeling is about the town of High River. He's been here for a while now, and
okay.
Crime-wise, I know he talked a little bit about some of the more broader strategies, but we're kind of more interested, I was anyways, more interested in
all right.
Strategies are.
For the record, we'll make that amendment, and it sounds like we're going to get an answer tonight. Thanks. I have one small, it's under my session there where it says determine the ratio. That should be composition of the permanent board. You got that one, Andy? Angie?
Yep, I'll make the amendment.
Thank you very much. Any others? Motion to adopt as amended.
Make that.
Thank you, Don. Second. Barry, thank you. Anyone opposed? Seeing or hearing none. Thank you. Reports, that's myself. First of all, on the status of the Police Act review, I may have said this before, but I'll share it again. We've heard nothing back recently. They're busy bureaucrats and presumably deputy ministers and the minister are working away on making a draft, and so there's a lot of internal meetings. The various people that were involved in the consultations haven't yet been consulted again. We might, before the draft is finished, all things that we had learned right now is that we'll be on the agenda for the spring setting. So that's usually somewhere around April. And I have no hints or no idea where that will go, except there was, as I said before, a strong feeling that municipalities should have given it's a provincial act and a federal legislation with the RCMP, there was quite a feedback about making that work together. I guess that's the best way to explain it right now. So how that will turn out, if at all, in the act, I'm not sure. The other item that I'm involved in is the interim police advisory committee that relates to rural policing, those that are serviced through the PPSA. And we've had frequent meetings, including one yesterday and another one next week, to finalize the priorities that arose from the survey. The survey came to High River and many other places, the smaller communities that have the RCMP and the rural areas. And we now have a draft, and hopefully this next week we'll have the finished product because it's due the end of next week. And that will go to the ministry and to K Division for them to, hopefully the intent is to blend those priorities that come from the rural areas about what they want to see from their local police. And that'll take some time for them to put that together, but it will eventually end up in the joint business plan for 2021 for the next 2 years. Anybody have any questions about that? Clarifications? It's all very interesting, but like anything with government, it goes very slowly. That's not for the minutes. But anyway, good. Next item, council rep, please.
Thanks, Terry. Just a few highlights, I guess. Since we last met, I didn't realize Chris was going to be on here, so I'm actually going to sing his praises for a couple of documents that he's bringing forward and implementing that I think are just really good decision-making tools, those being a financial framework and a capital priorities policy. And I think going forward, just allowing there to be some guidelines and some frameworks to work within, whether that be council or staff, to make some good long-term decisions. And I think just some really good tools that Chris is bringing to the table. So I sing his praises 14 months in, and but it's been 10 months since we've actually, I think, been in a room with Chris. But some of the other things, obviously COVID still continues to impact our facilities, and sounds like will continue for some time, but I think overall managing to do business, to continue to do business as usual virtually. And I think we've adjusted to many of the challenges fairly smoothly again. So accolades to Chris and to the entire staff. One of the initiatives that came forward at the last council meeting was a Gathering Spaces initiative that is the last piece of the Red Cross grant left over from the flood. And what they've done is still looking at the details, but right now they've earmarked a number of projects to use those funds for, one of them being alleyways in the downtown area, such as lighting, Pioneer Square, adding things like swing benches or Wi-Fi benches, solar benches as community benches, an edible food source in the empty lot beside AM 1140, a new dock potentially at Emerson Lake, do some enhancements to the library patio, making it more usable. There's a bike jump at the northwest by the golf course. It's not a town site, but it's been there for years and the kids use it. And so adding some things like seating and garbage and signage there. Also to enhance the memorial garden, making it more usable. So just a way to enhance space, create space for community to gather. And that initiative fits within the parameters of that grant. So good use to get that used up, because there's a timeline of the end of March to have it committed. There's a property tax auction coming up, maybe March 5th. Again, some properties that haven't paid taxes for 2 years. If they do not have those taxes paid by 10 a.m. on the 5th, those properties go up for sale. Normally they get paid, but every once in a while, you never know, I guess. Obviously, the big news over the past week is the stance that council has taken on the repealing of the coal policy of 1976. And I think, just to clarify that, I'm sure that's not the last that we are going to hear or have talked about it. The repealing of that is a huge impact on High River and the future of High River. It directly would impact and dangerously impact our headwaters, our future water source, and you know, the Rockies that have shaped Alberta to what we are. And so it was the decision of council to request that the government consider putting that back into effect. So we'll see where that go. I suspect we haven't heard the last of it, and it seems to be the top news or top one of the few news stories every day. So the conversation is continuing. Those are kind of the highlights. Unless anyone has any specific questions about that or something else, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions? Thank you, Kathy. Questions, comments?
Kathy,
Yep.
some of that money you were talking about, you mentioned lighting. You ever thought of the town implementing a charging station for electric vehicles downtown?
There is actually one right behind the Service Credit Union.
Okay.
Yep, there is.
Didn't see that. Okay.
Yeah, yep.
There's
And
two more in that parking lot too. And there's one at PV Mart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess the other thing I didn't add that we've kind of had a conversation out of it. Well, I mean, it's maybe business. It's old business. We'll talk about it then. I'll bring it up then.
Okay. If you forgive me, I want to go back because I've handwritten a piece here that I never paid attention to, like I should have done. Those of us that have been around a long time, and Cam's been here a lot longer than I have, is we've always tried to find youth to be members of our community committee. And Mandy was bringing her grandson, who's 16 and interested in being a member, and he came as a spectator on several occasions, if you recall. He put in an application, and Mandy called me actually while she was working. Actually, she texted me because she couldn't call me. And she got a rejection notice of this fellow. And the interpretation of the email that she got from Emma was that he was rejected because his family were on the committee, which we find kind of strange. She wasn't able to get me the email because she's doing her work with the AHS project. I raise it, and we'll have the email here at the next business meeting. But if anybody wants to make some inquiries, if she interpreted that correctly, I'd be very disappointed if that was the reason, because if that is the reason, Mandy and I are both here. So how does that fit in and the other one not? I'm not going to want to debate it today. I want to give you a heads up because we'll raise it again unless we've got a satisfactory answer in the meantime at the next meeting, unless somebody's got some questions about it. Can you follow it up here?
Yeah, I think as far as committee membership, if there's clarification needed, then Mandy will have to, or the grandson needs to contact Ledge Services to get more of an explanation on it.
So Terry, are you waiting to discuss it till the next meeting till we have that email?
Yeah, I'd rather look at the email and share it with you. she couldn't give it to me tonight because she was busy. She couldn't. Her machinery was all tied up, so she couldn't give it for me.
Right.
So unless you want to add something to it, Kathy.
No, I was just trying to find my notes. Sorry, I totally should have had that prepared. I'm just trying to find my notes, but that's certainly it. And sorry, you were cutting out when you were talking about you and Mandy's position there. I think that was one of the recommendations that came forward, and one of the discussions from council was that sometimes when you look at the membership of this committee, the voting membership of this committee, you know, does it make good, does it make sense to have three people of the same family essentially on a board? You know, obviously with voting privileges, that was certainly one of the conversations that, or one of the factors that went into the decision.
Okay, well, let's see if we can find an answer before next time. Otherwise, I'll bring it back again. It was an opportunity to have a youth person, and we've tried for years. That's the real point. So.
Yeah, and I certainly presented that, that this committee has tried to seek out a youth member for a number of years. And in the end, that was the decision. And I know that Kara is working on some policies that around committees, and obviously having a certain number of people from the same family and or same household will be part of that policy.
Well, Mandy and I are not the same household, so.
No, I realize that. Yeah.
Okay. All right, moving on. Local police, RCMP, please.
Okay, so I'll just walk through our monthly report first. We have some position changes coming up. Corporal Davis, who's been down in Nanton, is going to be moving over to Gleason Detachment, so he's going to be permanently posted there. And the second body that was filling that spot, Corporal Scullerwood, put in his resignation as of today, so he'll be retiring from the police force with 30 years service on February 17th. So even though we have the rural detachment kind of spooling up and it's moving on to its own direction there, we're still going to be filling that spot presently. So until such time as they actually normalize the detachments through OSB, which could take a little time. So we will be putting another corporal, or will be requesting that position is filled again. We received a member from High Prairie. She started on January 8th. So that brings us up. We're actually one, I think, position STE currently. So we're one over the establishment. We still have three off on mat or pat leave, but we have two coming back, one March 1st and one the end of March, which is going to put us in pretty good shape. Peter's been working with regards to our third municipal employee position. So we expect to see that position advertised sometime here in the near future, which will bring a full complement of our support staff back to the office, which would be excellent. Yeah, so with regards to the rural detachment, we have our 4 constables assigned to that detachment, and they're being supervised out of Turner Valley. And again, we're currently now responsible for the community of High River, and the rural area outside will be through Turner Valley. With regards to call volume between November the 13th and January the 13th, 597 prose occurrences, so files created or files received. I kind of went through them. We had a few theft from vehicle, and we've had some theft of vehicles. Mischiefs, we had a bit of an issue Christmas time with Christmas lights. George Lane Park was an area that we had to do a bit more patrolling through, just with regards to lights or damage being done there. We're still waiting for COVID to kind of let up to do our lock it or lose it program. So we'd like to roll that out with the assistance of the COPs, just to get a little more education to the public. You know, lock your stuff up, lock your vehicles. We are in touch with the radio station, and I believe we are set to start in February. We're going to be doing a monthly piece in which we'll be soliciting questions from the community, and probably a day in advance, and the next day we'll discuss them as the topic. So it'll be a good consultation piece that'll occur on a monthly basis where if somebody has an issue, they can bring it up or question. So it'll kind of help us move along and alter our course as maybe need be. In the event we don't have any questions, we'll just make an effort to address issues. We could address, lock your vehicle, etc., things of that nature. I know you probably read, if you're reading through the report, we did have a couple charges with relation to COVID. Our stance with relation to handing out any kind of enforcement on COVID is it has to be flagrant and it has to be of a severe nature. So it's somebody who's defiantly out and breaking the legislation. So our first step in any point right now is still trying to educate. We've had a few calls with regards to skating rinks or group gatherings that occurred over Christmas. We do have the one Hugs Over Masks group. They're usually a group of 10. They don't wander off the property. We monitor them and they kind of disperse pretty quickly. So we've kind of just chose to monitor that instead of trying to make an issue out of it. I guess one of the other bigger files you might have heard about in the media is out at Cargill. It's not actually in our purview anymore, but it did land at our detachment. So we initially took the information from the lawyers from the union. They're alleging a wrongful death suit with regards to neglect on behalf of Cargill, which caused a COVID case to occur and the subsequent death. So we took the information, that information has been forwarded to our General Investigation and Major Crimes units, and they're going to be working with that. But it doesn't really pertain, that's actually Laura Aikit's area now out of the Turner Valley Detachment. Let me see what else I have here. That was kind of it. All in all, we're seeing a little more on the persons crimes. I don't think, in my opinion, we're seeing, for lack of a better term, more of a normalization or a move back to kind of a normal environment. I think when it comes to COVID first coming out, people were kind of scarce. They were staying indoors, they were staying tucked away. And now as this has progressed into its almost a year now, there's more stuff going on. There's more activity. We're seeing more people out doing crime. So I think we're kind of bending back toward what would be a normal circumstance for us. That's kind of what I got. When did you want me to discuss kind of what we had for crimes and et cetera from last year?
Now's good, please.
Okay, so a little feedback. Okay, so I'm getting a little feedback. Is that me or? Anyways, I'll keep going here. So calls for service last year on the municipal side for the detachment was 2,947. I actually did some comparison because I believe the question was asked last time, what will be a comparison to the Crow's Nest Pass where I came from? The Crow's Nest Pass on the last report statting that I had was from 2018. Very consistent in the past. We maintain a pretty steady volume of calls. So the Crow's Nest Pass would average about 2,300 calls a year. So we're only about 600 more calls a year for double the population of the pass. Call volumes, mostly in the summer months, we're busy. It's your July and August. We did have a bit of a spike in May this year. When I looked for the timing of the calls, when they were generated and the volume of calls, basically it mirrors the Crow's Nest Pass very well in the fact that 7% of the calls for our detachment on the municipal side are coming in between the hours of 4 and 8 a.m. and 6% in the Crow's Nest Pass. So for a 24-hour policing model, we've mitigated that well. We usually will have 2 on at any time here in the town, which is more than adequate, especially during those hours. And we're a little more bulked up in the evening and during the day shift. So this report serves us to make sure that we're employing the appropriate shift schedule and the appropriate resourcing. And now we have 24-hour policing with at least 3 members on in Okotoks. They've gone to a 12-hour watch system again. And we also have 24-hour policing within the rural area. So our backup is also available. So at any time, there might be for an hour or two at the most, you might have one member working in High River, but the backup is fairly close in that we have 24-hour coverage from 2 detachments that neighbor us. So it kind of mitigates any risk. By workload, last year, mental health activities accounted for 7.4% of our detachment workload. We had an anomaly in, we had an attempt murder with a firearm. That was out of the city of Calgary, landed on our doorstep, and there was a large volume of work put into that file, and that accounted for 6.4%. Other than that, we have assaults, frauds, criminal harassment, mischiefs, and they're all in that 4 to 3% or high 2%. And then if we're looking at by file count, so that's kind of what we spent our work on. And then by file count, suspicious persons or property rates the highest with 224 files. They're pretty common and they can be scored in a lot of different ways. I got somebody in my backyard, or there's a car parked down the street and it doesn't seem right to me. There can be a lot of reasons for that file type. Mischiefs, we have 148. We do have a fair amount of mischiefs. I don't think it's any more than any other community. I would say, looking at the statistics between here and the Crow's Nest Pass, we have very similar issues in both communities. You're looking at when summer rolls around and the kids get bored, they're trying car doors and stealing things out of cars. Traffic is always an issue. I think we'll see a decrease with us in traffic. It's still a hot spot when you talk to people, when you're out in the community. A lot of people have the perception that speed is an issue in their neighborhood. Peter's been very good at helping us out with the speed spy. And I would say, by and large, it's a perception and it's not a reality. So you think a vehicle speeding by when it's actually adhering to the limit. Assisting the general public, that's kind of a catch-all when we're not sure how to score things. Other moving traffic violations, mental health activities were 117 occurrences. We're actually doing an audit right now of mental health cases in an effort to look at possibly looking for a position for a mental health person within maybe 3 detachments coming forward to like fund it in that regard. We've been finding a steady increase in mental health calls. We've been gleaning the calls from not just what's based as a mental health call, but what may be assistance to another provincial agency that'll have a mental health component to it. So there's a few different call types that we've kind of looked to, and so we're seeing more numbers than are actually being reported. Bylaws rate for about 98 calls, a lot of speed, and then MVCs are pretty low. That would be the biggest change between here and the Crow's Nest Pass. The Crow's Nest Pass, our biggest calls, one of the biggest things was MVCs. We were subject to about 300 deer strikes a year that would get reported. Plus we had the collisions on highways, so we had a lot more collision related work there. Not quite as much mental health, although it seemed like it. We had a lot to do with that. Still had the same mischiefs and whatnot. So that's kind of the breakdown of what we have for files. The rural detachment itself accounted for 1,126 files. And that's going to be now in the purview of Laura in the Turner Valley. And their biggest workload was MBCs, which makes sense. We were spending, you get your fatals, you get your lots of collisions out on the highway. Other moving traffic violations counted for 10% of the workload. Animal calls, so you could rate that as a deer strike or other. So a little bit different. And for file type, other moving traffic violations, MVC, suspicious persons, kind of rated out at the top. Moving traffic speeding violations. And I think you're seeing that because a lot of our calls in the rural area are coming off Highway 2 or the secondary highways. So, and again, that's going to disappear from our radar a little bit because we're going to be planning just for the community of High River this year. So having been here a while, I say we're a pretty normal community as far as it goes. I think we're fortunate with the, I guess, the makeup of the community is such that we don't really have a prolific drug problem in the community. We certainly do see drugs coming to the community, but we've been able to address hotspots as they've come up. And we're not seeing problems with fentanyl. We're not seeing problems with meth creeping up in the community, which is really good. We're seeing minor crimes, which is normal. You're looking at your mischiefs, your theft from vehicles. We don't have a lot of theft of vehicles, but I think what we find here, and it happened in the Crow's Nest Pass as well, is traveling criminals. So the criminal bases from Calgary tend to travel further and further out. And so they'll come and hit a community and then go back to Calgary. Certainly within theft of metal or cables, of that thing where they're going to be going and selling them off at the junkyards. That's something we see coming from the city and coming out here, and it certainly affects the rural area, and that's a rural crime issue more than it would be in town. But we are seeing that in town as well, so guys going after metal. There has been some good legislation put in, and there's some good mechanisms in place now where they're being more cognizant of making sure that people have proper identification when they're dropping these goods off, so we're better able to track information with that regard. Minor mischiefs. You have your domestic violence. I don't think we have an issue here with domestic violence any more than anywhere else. It's kind of a common thing here with the numbers. Traffic seems to be an issue, and again, it's a perception, I think, a lot of times, especially within the town. We're very, very good and diligent. We have done a ton of school and playground patrols. They get done pretty much on a daily basis. Especially, now we have the 24-hour zones going through the schools. So I think we're on top of that. There's the odd road that may creep up, but again, sometimes it's just perception. So I think all in all, it's a very safe and good community to live in. And I don't think we're not run off our feet with crime here. And I think it is a good community, and our crime volume is very low, would be my opinion. Questions?
How about B&Es, Greg? House B&Es, you didn't mention that. Like, is there house break-and enters?
Yeah, so for break and enters, over this past year, we're down 24%. So we have 11 fewer incidences. We're not seeing a lot of break and enters. They're sporadic. You're getting the odd one here and there, which lends more to we'll have issues in the new construction. So you'll have somebody come in maybe from another town. They'll grab fridges or stoves and take off. So that's kind of a thing. We're not finding that there's a whole lot of houses being broken into. We're not seeing that person that's coming in and hitting 20 houses, or at least not yet. And hopefully, knock on wood, we don't.
And the same with commercial B&Es, would that be more related to what you described as, I guess, criminals coming from Calgary kind of thing?
Yeah, you're looking at your commercial B&Es are probably more lean towards the steal of metals, your copper wire thefts. Popular right now is the, whatchamacallit there from the car, lacking the term for it. Anyone?
Manifold, magnesium manifold?
Yeah, it's something to do with that. Yeah,
Catalytic converters.
Catalytic converter, that's the word. That's Peter, good to you. So yeah, we get those from time to time. So you'll see, a car missing its catalytic converter. And that, again, the province is getting much better at tracking that kind of a thing with making people be properly identified when they're trying to sell them off at the site. So hopefully we see a decrease in that. Our crime reduction unit has been doing really good work. We have a very good analyst right now who is on top of everything in the Southern Alberta district. He is pretty much in contact with us on a daily basis. If he thinks somebody's getting out of remand or there's a guy active in Calgary, he'll let us know to be aware of it. So we're very fortunate to have him as a resource, and he's been very helpful. We've actually been able to scoop up a couple people that might have had warrants who were probably going to cause problems in our area just based on intel from him. So
the last one was they got his robberies. Like there was something on Facebook, I think today, about the van by the NW. you guys had him with a knife or something like that? Was that
Yep.
a road rage or was that a robbery?
You know, I can't speak intelligently to that one. I saw the file. I didn't read it over. I'm not fully versed. I know there was an incident with a knife, and I know they're looking for information with regards to that. I think they put a media release out, and they're looking for further information. So I can get back to you on that. I can't.
No, I just just more curious. That was a actual trying to like a carjacking kind of thing, or if that was just a road rage thing.
Yeah, I'll definitely look into that, and I can get back to you on that.
So, Terry, that was really good. Greg, thanks for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem.
Any other questions, comments?
I just have a question. When are you going to do more education in the schools, or is that going to be put off because of COVID?
That's entirely been affected by COVID at this time. So we do have Jill Mills, who is our #1 school person and who would love to be in the schools right now. But yeah, just with the protocols, we're just keeping our distances. We have still been involved in a lot of incidences at the school. So we've been doing I'm missing terms tonight. Anyways, we have the threat assessments that we'll do when there's an incident at the school. So we're still involved in those kind of scenarios. And we have been involved at, we've had some issues with the students going through the Prairie Sound area to go over to the Kimmer. And there's been some knocking there between the residents and the teenagers. So we're involved in those kind of situations. So like to be in the school. It's certainly one of our priorities is always to be in the school. And I know that the students miss out when we aren't making the time to be there. And it's something as simple as if we can get out and play floor hockey with them or roll out some kind of education is always something we want to do. So we're looking forward to some restrictions being lifted and being more active.
Yes, I know they are too, but thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Greg, thank you for such a comprehensive report there. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next is admin bylaw, please.
Super, thanks. Mine's not going to be that comprehensive. Greg took all my time.
But you knew what a catalytic converter was, so that's awesome.
That's true. I win some points that way. Just a few things from my end. As far as bylaws, the Good Neighbor bylaw earlier this month got third and final reading. So that one now is well, actually, no, it was before Christmas. What am I thinking? It was before Christmas. But we have that one in place, and municipal enforcement's actually been out with it already to enforce that one and educate the public on it on a few of the issues. Snow removal came up a little bit. There were some complaints, of course, with the heavy snow that we got around Christmas time there. They were being pretty flexible on it. They were just kind of addressing the complaints, knowing that everybody was in the same boat, that it was going to take time to get that snow cleared up. But they're happy with it. It's been pretty clear for them to take forward. I have an amending bylaw for the animal bylaw that's going to council on Monday. And that's regards, it's very specific to pigeon ownership. We had first reading in December, and or actually might have been the end of November. And on Monday, it goes for a public hearing. So there will be a public hearing for that amending bylaw, and then we'll see from the feedback on that where we go next. As far as I haven't got a final report on for bylaw for 2019. I have most of the months on how their activities. Similar to RCMP, the call volumes generally were down. A lot of bylaw elements were down for the year. and that was really due to COVID, had an impact on that. And then, of course, peace officers were pulled into some of the provincial orders for to enforce COVID-related orders that came out from the medical officer of health. So, but generally their call volumes were down, but they were still keeping pretty busy with activity and complaints related to bylaws. The speed spy, I didn't have it out in December, but I've had it actually out this month, just this week. I picked it up today and just pulled the data actually before this meeting. And so the location I had it was in the northbound lanes of 10th Street, just south of the high school. And so the preliminary data that I got does actually show a little bit higher speeds through there, and for what I got picked up this week. And so I'm gonna try to get it out there again next week in the same spot, and see what the data is, and then I'll go over that with Greg. But I'll provide the copy of it for the next meeting for the police committee, and send out those graphs that I usually have. Other than that, I think that's about it from my end, unless there's any questions for me.
Questions, comments?
Peter, is there any update from engineering or operations on any traffic comment issues?
No specific updates on it. I did look into the Emerson Lake action item for the parking and people backing out and so on. And there hasn't been any issues from municipal enforcement, and RCMP haven't run into any issues there. And as far as like traffic calming construction and stuff, I'm not aware of any that are have come up so far.
Okay. Kathy, did you have a question?
Yeah, Peter, and I can take a drive. I've actually meant to pay attention last time I was out that way. On that road on 10th, the speed signs for quite a while didn't line up. When you were going one direction, it turned 50 at a very different spot than it did the other direction. Maybe between you and I, we can remember to check to see if they are aligned, if they got fixed.
I think we can have a look at it again, Kathy. The reason I put the speed spy out in that area, municipal enforcement had some questions about if the high school was a school zone and should have school zone signs. And we did explore that one the same time as we did Senator Riley. For along 5th there, and it just didn't score out to indicate that we needed to put a school zone there. I didn't score high enough on it. That's not to say that we wouldn't put one there, but at the same time, municipal enforcement looked at the signage going both directions, and they thought it. I think you're correct. I think one of the signs should be adjusted, and I think it's going south. Coming north was okay, but going south might have needed an adjustment.
Okay, it's not a big deal. It's just inconsistent. So.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it, Peter?
That's it for me.
Thank you. There'll be no youth justice today. In fact, I don't think they've even been, for COVID reasons, they haven't even been getting together, I don't think. I see Citizens on Patrol is here. Tammy, you have anything to say? Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Hi, everybody. Nice to be a part of tonight's meeting. Usually it's Pat George because Thursdays are my position at the Recplex, but will not be for a little while yet, unfortunately. So Citizens on Patrol we did miss your last meeting because we were part of the Alberta Provincial Annual General Meeting, which we always like to be a big group of. So as an executive, we met with them. The Alberta body of Citizens on Patrol has taken a really big hit with COVID. Citizens on Patrol, I would hazard a guess that the average age is about 75 years old of most of their population. And so just with the danger of COVID, many of the members haven't felt safe. And so there has been, I believe it's 4 or 5 different communities have actually had their patrol group fold just for lack of membership and lack of anything. We did get instructed not to do patrols back in the spring. We were back on in September, which we did do some patrols out and about in High River. But then with the extra measures, obviously we can't patrol. We don't actually have any husband-wife teams that would be able to safely be a group, and we can't go with each other. So we're at a bit of a standstill as well, unfortunately. We have 6 new members, which I hope we don't lose in the process. Our executive is very tight and we're quite a strong group and we're not ready to ever throw the towel in. So I don't know, we'll probably be the board forever in High River, I'm sure. But just to piggyback on Greg's comment about the Lock It or Lose It campaign, we thought that was really successful last May. And important information to share out with the community. So again, we can't wait to be able to do that with the members, as well as even get to know the members. Just with all the turnover at the detachment and the new members coming and going, I think we do feel a bit of a disconnect with that, just because we haven't been able to be out on a patrol and go grab a coffee at Tim Hortons and get to know some of the constables, which I know many of our members enjoy. So I don't have much to report. We're just kind of like hanging in there waiting for some more openings with everything. So yeah.
Thank
Any
you, Kathy.
questions?
Anybody got any comments, questions? Well, on behalf of all of us, we really appreciate what you do and the hours that you
Thanks,
spend
Terry.
doing it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Next item is old business, annual open house and the annual performance plan, please. Who's speaking to that? Peter?
Yeah, I can speak to it. So as you know, with the annual open house, we won't be able to do it the same way this year. The one thing that we had sent out to the committee was the survey from last year, just to have a review of that. We had pretty good success with that survey last year, and chatting with Greg, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. We thought we would send out the same survey again to the public, just to get some feedback and thoughts on policing in the community, and then what we get from there, plus the radio station interaction with the public that might help inform at least the early ones will help to inform that. I don't have it to share yet because it has to go to council, but there was a budget survey that did go out before Christmas, I think back in November, to the public from administration. And that survey, there were some questions on there for municipal enforcement, but some of the data that I've looked at preliminary also speaks to policing. So once that survey becomes public, we'll be able to glean from it some information that will help also inform the APP this year. And so I guess maybe just open it up if there's any comments or concerns with utilizing the same survey from last year. or any suggestions on changes we might make.
Comments, suggestions? I sent you an email. Did you get the one I got?
I did, yep.
Yeah, I didn't have a copy of last year's and through the one with the analysis in, which I thought was pretty good. It didn't have it, but just as long as we make sure that it's a survey of the High River Policing Committee.
Okay.
Peter,
Yeah.
can we include something in the town crier? And or was there also a plan to use the town's social media to push out the survey, or what was the plan?
And that's a good point, Kathy. We certainly can. I was going to lean on our communications folks for the distribution of it. If we don't have to create a new survey, that takes some pressure off, and communications will have the previous survey ready to go, and then I would lean on them to help promote it through town crier or social media.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thomas?
Terry, just to report on the action item that I had, and I'd like to thank Don for his help on it. Looking into the idea of a call-in phone show on the radio type of thing, in terms of it just being a one-of type event, they're usually a disaster because people don't call in and don't know about it, or they call in and complain. Even though I've seen them successful on CBC Radio 1 every noon hour type of thing, just doing a one-of's not a good go.
Okay. So okay, just to be clear, we're not going down that road, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Chris, is there anything you would like to say?
I just have to, I'm up in my bedroom right now because there's too much noise in my house right now. Dog running around, and we had a fire alarm going off. So I got to teach my son how to cook toast. Thinking about the annual open house, there are some different things that we can maybe try from using social media, like a Facebook Live conversation, or a series of Facebook Live conversations that are programmed from that perspective over a series of weeks, and just have questions coming in through that chat line from that perspective. So there are some different tools that we could try. It's not necessarily face-to-face, which is always nice to put names to faces sometimes, but we can try some things like that. We've had some success with some of our Facebook Live programming, and great uptake on that on our channel. So we could take a look at that from that perspective for the annual open house. Answering the question about traffic calming, we are circulating a traffic calming policy currently through engineering and having a close look at that. It'll be hopefully coming to council sometime this year, that talks about physical changes to roads instead of lights and flashing lights all over the place. So we're taking a serious look at traffic calming. My experience with traffic calming has been very good. In Invermere, we use traffic calming measures throughout the community: raised crosswalks, speed humps, truncated corners, larger elephant ears to slow traffic down, different visual things, different colors of signs, changing out signs, changing variable speed limits, those types of things on a regular basis. Operations hate traffic calming, let me be clear. It's horrible for their snow clearing and hard on their equipment, but that's just a cost you have to pay. So it does work. It's probably more effective from a pedestrian safety perspective than flashing lights and controlled lights from that perspective. And that's kind of been my experience with traffic calming. So those are just the 2 points I wanted to highlight.
Okay, thanks. Anybody, any questions of Chris?
Terry, just I guess in follow-up, to the last meeting, you were hoping to have a conversation regarding the budget item regarding policing. And I did send out a request to Chris, but I think twofold. He was dealing with positive tests in the building and having to do a second screening in a very short period of time. And we were 3 weeks away from approving the budget. So I'm going to recommend that much earlier, because obviously budget talks start far earlier than December, that we try to get you and Chris together and you can have a conversation about that and what it might look like.
Well, I'd look forward to that because I think we should, and you just mentioned it, be involved earlier in the process, in an early draft if you want. So at least we can have some conversations over it. We do provide some input that costs some money now and again. The famous traffic lights being one, but and the APP can give a rise to something that might cost some money, and I think we have a stake in that, and as a group, as a committee, as an advisory committee, then I think we should be involved earlier in that. We may or may not have much to add, but at least we have the opportunity to comment on it, and maybe some of the comments we have could be useful. Thank you. Any other business for today? Something that's been burning you all the way through the meeting that you really want to share?
I just, Terry, I just wanted to, I like the ideas that Chris had said about maybe doing a Facebook Live event. Do you want me to take that away to just connect with our communications folks on it? Is that something that the committee or yourself want to consider doing as part of the open house, or and info for the APP? I just want to make sure we're kind of looking at all avenues and knowing that we can't do it the traditional way this year.
Okay, well, thanks for that. Does anybody have a feeling about this? I know Tom's been working on this, and I heard clearly what he said just now, but is it worth Don and Tom or anybody else to come to that, work on this and see what it might look like in conjunction with the radio station? Any comments?
We do that.
Pardon, Don?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. We had talked with Jill about coming in once a month and using our text number so that people can send in questions a day, 2 or 3 days ahead, and any concerns they might have. And so that would work, but certainly we could do Facebook Live.
Okay. Is there any opposition to Don and Tom getting together, and anybody else who wants to join them to try and put something together here? I think it has potential. We'll see how it shapes up. Thomas, any comments?
No, I'm willing to work on it. I happen not to be a Facebook user myself, that's all. So I don't know a lot of the ins and outs of it.
Okay. Well, can you get together with Don? Anybody else who wants to join in and see what you can do? We have a little bit of time, not a lot, but a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah, I can call Don and we can go from there.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
And we won't have well, you'll need to get a hold of us on what's happening. I know Thomas will, because I think that'll all happen before the next meeting, won't it? Pretty sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other business?
Okay. And just finish that off, I'll move ahead with having the survey posted then.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Hearing nothing else, thank you all.
Oh, I got one other thing, Terry. Just what we discussed when I bumped into you at the co-op today, that I've had some emails going back and forth between Kathy and Peter in relation to the recommendation for the bylaw in relation to the town, approving vendor permits and not allowing certain groups. So there's a possible, Kathy had mentioned maybe a possibility of you and I doing a presentation down the road sometime to town council. So if that's still a possibility, Kathy, then I'll start working on that, actually. I don't know what time frame you're looking at.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. That was the other thing I wanted to bring up. I did put in a request for you and likely Terry to join you to make a presentation to a committee of a whole meeting. So that right now is with our admin team, and we'll wait to hear when that can be scheduled.
Okay, thank you. I'd be pleased to be part of that. Thank you. Anything else before we? Hearing none, the next meeting, January, no, that's the wrong one. Yeah, it says January the 21st on here. When is the next meeting, Angie?
February 18th.
Thank you. February the 18th. Motion to adjourn?
I will.
And
Thank you,
Jen
Jen.
will second.
Thank you. Have a good night. See you
Good night.
around.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.